So we're going to start with the fuel category. The first one, know this. Water is an essential element. I'm going to use this first initiative, if you will, this first good habit, this first vital behavior to illustrate some of the things that we're teaching around Bonfire. How many people here feel like they get enough water every day? Yeah? Right on. Good, good, good. Now, who can tell me how much water do you think you're supposed to be drinking? Can I get somebody raise their hand? How much? Okay, how much do you weigh? How much is 8 cups? How many ounces? All right, anybody have another guess? How much water should you drink? About 1.5 gallons? I like you. I like you. I like that spirit. All right, so here's the equation. This is some tough math. You might want to write this down. Take your body weight in pounds, divide it by 2, drink that in fluid ounces of water. Half your body weight in fluid ounces, okay? Ideally, you're going to be consuming your body weight in water every day, okay? But half of it's going to come from the water that you drink, and half of it's going to come from the foods that you eat. Okay, so we're going to talk more about the foods that you should be eating, and most of them have a lot of water content. So take your body weight, divide it in half, and that's the number of fluid ounces of water you should be drinking every day. You know what? When people start drinking enough water, what we end up running into is a problem that looks like this. Right? These plastic water bottles. We have seen billions and billions and billions of these introduced into the environment because people are taking the good information, the right good habit and adding it into their lives. They're drinking more and more water. Unfortunately, it's at the cost in the environment, because what happens is we introduce so many plastic containers into the environment. We think, yeah, they get recycled. But unfortunately, the truth is that most of them don't end up getting recycled, and many of them end up here in the ocean. So this is close to home for me, because I'm a surfer. I know what you're thinking. You're a surfer, and you live in New Hampshire. That's correct. The aloha state of the Northeast. We actually get really good waves in New Hampshire. But I'm fortunate enough in that I get to travel all over the world to teach, and if you notice, my teaching schedule is kind of suspicious because I tend to teach places that have excellent waves. You know, I teach in Australia, and I teach in Hawaii, and I teach in Costa Rica, and in Mexico. I love to surf. This is actually a place called Playa Negra in Costa Rica. Fantastic right-hand throwing breakers. Just one of my favorite places in the world. But what happens with these water bottles is over time, they end up in these giant patches of plastic that aggregate and collect out in the oceans. Can you see those yellow dots? That is part, you see this right here? Here's Hawaii, it's San Francisco. Somewhere in between is the Great Northern Pacific vortex and collection of plastic bottles, the Great Northern Pacific Garbage Patch. Can you imagine the impact that that has on the environment, on the animals that are trying to survive in that? When you take a close-up view, that's what it starts looking like. You know, it's 3 times the size of Texas, 4 feet deep on the surface of the ocean now. So what we want to make sure that we're doing when we make these choices is that we want to make sure that we're taking the environment into account when we're making choices about the health of the human being. Say yes if you guys are with me on that. Okay? So what's good for the planet is good for the people, is good for the planet. So a good habit is to get yourself one of these water bottles. How many people carry a water bottle with them regularly? One of these reusable, I like the stainless steel or glass water bottles, okay? This is an absolute vital behavior. So as we introduce this challenge onto campus in week 1 in the fuel category, how you eat, we're going to challenge everybody to every day consume half of your body weight in fluid ounces of water, pure water. And I'm going to ask everybody, if they could, to carry a water bottle that's reusable, okay? And I want you to check each other and keep an eye on each other and encourage each other that we're not adding more plastic into the environment. Say yes if you guys are with me on that. Yes. The air, how you move. Number 1, know this. Movement is a nutrient. It's a required nutrient. Do you guys understand that your cells have nutritional requirements? That there are things that we have to put into our bodies that our cells require? If you don't have vitamin C in your body, what do you get? Scurvy, right? If you don't have vitamin D, what do you get? Rickets, right? All right, those are manifestations of a deficiency. So people get it from a nutritional perspective, but they struggle when they think about it from movement, or even how about an emotional or psychological perspective. Would you believe that we have nutrients that we have to be putting into our bodies in our emotional, mental, psychological, relational lives, right? Nutrients that have to be present, right? Things like connection and respect and acceptance and influence and unconditional love. These are the things that need to be fed into our bodies, into ourselves, so that we have a healthy thought life. Say yes if you're with me on that, right? Well, movement is a nutrient. Your bodies grew up over the millennia. Your ancestors were hunters and gatherers. They were incredibly active. If they were going to eat, they had to move. If you didn't hunt and gather, you didn't eat, all right? So you come from a long line of awesome hunters and gatherers, fit, muscular, strong people who used to move their bodies in order to be able to secure energy. Nowadays, what do? Sit in front of a computer, sit in front of the television, sit in class all day long. Then you can climb in your car, drive down to a restaurant, if you want to call it that, pull up to the window, roll down your window, and they throw a bag of toxic, deficient food in your window, right? That is not what your hunter and gatherer ancestors used to do. They used to have to chase down their lunch to eat it, okay? And I don't mean chasing it down with a Coke, all right? I'm talking about being active. You had to move if you wanted to eat. If you didn't move, you were eaten, all right? So, movement is a nutrient. We have to reconcile the energy balance. People are taking in too many calories and not expending enough. And I know that that's not really a big problem here. I'm stoked to hear the physical fitness focus on this campus. You guys with sports and activities, it's fantastic. Congratulations for that. Man, that needs to sweep our nation. You got to move the body, not just for the body, but for the mind, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, week one, in movement, I want to make sure that you got a buddy. I want you to buddy up with somebody, and you need to make sure that you move 7 days a week. How many days a week? 7 days a week. Minimum requirement, 30 minutes of moving, sweating, and panting. Sweating and panting, all right? Not just movement, but I want you guys to go through exertion. Your bodies want exertion. So in order to reconcile our sedentary lifestyles, we got to exert ourselves. So pick your buddy. Figure out who your buddy is going to be. You guys got to keep each other accountable. Moving, sweating, and panting, 30 minutes, 7 days a week. Say yes if you can do that. Yes. Spark, how you think? Number one, chronic social stress. You know, as human beings, we never experience long-term social, psychological stresses. The only chronic stress, mental stress we experienced in the wild as human beings was famine. It meant that we couldn't find any food, and that lasted for long periods of time, and that was stressful, okay? So what the body would do is it would release stress hormones like cortisol and catecholamines like epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it would change your physiology. Cortisol is the stress hormone that you and I release when we're worried about something, when we're stressed out. And that stress was serving us well if there was a tiger jumping out of the woods, because that cortisol, that stress hormone, would change your physiology, so your heart rate went up, your eyes would dilate, your muscles would flex, breathing would change, okay? You would be stressed out. You would be ready for what? Fight or flight, preferably in that situation, fleeing, okay? And that served you well when there was a tiger jumping out of the woods at you, okay? It would save your life. But it was never meant to be a sustained physiological state, worrying, stressed all the time. Say yes if you get that, okay? So what we're dealing with today as human beings is a totally unnatural phenomenon of chronic social stress. You throw in chronic dehydration, toxic deficient lifestyles, and exhaustion because nobody's sleeping right, and we've got the perfect hormonal storm for just tragedy and chronic disease. So we've got to help mitigate some of these social stresses. We've got to create things, tools, that will help us sort of process things and reduce our chronic stress. So we're going to introduce the concept of journaling. And I'm going to challenge you guys to journal throughout this entire thing, which is why we chart out the whole experience. You can journal over all three categories. You can keep track of your fuel, how you're eating, your air, how you're moving, your spark, and all your thought life around that. I highly recommend it. And if you're asking what one thing I would say you should absolutely do, it would be get one of those journals so that you can write it down. This is a worthwhile endeavor, and your life is worth recording.